Yo guys, what is up? We are here with another reading video, and I'm excited for getting as we get farther into the book. I've been saying it so many times. I know you're tired of hearing it, but it gets better. So I'm gonna get to a few things quick in case you are not watching this to watch the entire video, because I know some of you do that, and I do that too. So I have, as you've probably seen when this is gonna be uploaded, seen that I have deleted all vlogs and Nerf videos. That is the reason of transforming this YouTube channel into not an everything channel, but a reading channel. And I think I am considering the start of a news channel by me in the beginning of next spring, because I still do not have everything figured out, and I figure that next spring will be a good time to start. We'll start actually even talking about elections, and it'll be a good time to start. I know that you probably think that with the November elections coming up, the midterm elections today, around now would be a good time to start. But like I said, I do not have everything figured out. I mean, I'm very close. I've got an idea that I think might just work. But still, I'm not sure enough to start it and have a blank YouTube channel up forever. Because then YouTube terminates it. So anyway, so today's book suggestion is Lone Wolf. No, not Lone Wolf. Sorry. My bad. It's White Fang. It's by Jack London. A lot of you probably heard of Jack London. Amazing author. He writes a lot about dogs and the gold rush and that kind of area of time. So, I think that without further ado, if I can... Ooh, wow. For once, I've not gone far enough. Let's see, 12, 11, 10. Here we go. So, if you remember, Garrison Strayer, or wait, what's his name? Garrison Strayer, I don't know. The Garrison guy from the Resistance, the Alliance, is here, and they're here to talk about something. Not gonna spoil it for you. So, without further ado, let's get into the book. Chapter 10. Zara's mouth went dry. For a moment, she thought the man was lying, but Uncle Red reached out and shook his hand. That was when Zara realized their visitor was really Garrison. Her ever-so-cautious uncle would never have let the man in if he had any doubts about him. "Come in," said Uncle Red. "This is my niece, Zara." "It's nice to meet you," Garrison said, sticking out his hand. Zara shook it, slowly blinking. She'd spent years yearning to meet the leaders of the Alliance, but she never imagined that they could be so young. She'd always thought they would be middle-aged men who spent hours hunched over their desk, mumbling about new recruits and military strategy. Yet here was Garrison, only a few years older than she was. That'd be kind of ironic, considering Zara's uncle would then be older than Garrison. Just pointing that out. "It's so nice to meet you, too," Zara said finally. She flushed when she remembered the state of their house, in shambles after Colonel Eckert's visit. She hastily overturned the fallen chairs and kicked away the debris. "Sorry about the mess. The Nazis were just here." Garrison's whole body tensed. "Any chance they'll come back?" "I don't think so. They conducted a thorough search," said Uncle Red, "but we'll keep an eye out on the road." Garrison's gaze darted to the window for half a minute before he finally relaxed. He took off his hat and propped it on the back of the chair. "Did the Nazis hurt you too?" He waited for them to shake their heads before he continued. "I'm really sorry for showing up unannounced, but there are a few things we need to discuss." "What sort of things?" Zara blurted. "If Garrison had traveled all the way here, this must be important." "Let the man take a seat. I'm sure he's tired and wouldn't mind some water." Uncle Red ushered Garrison to the tattered sofa while Zara grabbed a cup of water and a bowl of leftover cabbage stew that Garrison took with a grateful nod. She wondered how long he had been on the road. The trip from the Alliance bunker in West Virginia would have taken hours, considering that the bunker was located 100 miles from New Berlin and was built underneath an abandoned hotel to curb suspicion. "Are there any other members of your chapter that you need to contact? I'd like to speak to them too, if possible," Garrison said between bites. "The Nazis executed one of our members only recently. Nell Talley," Uncle Red said. His tone softened when you mentioned her name. "I sent a message to the Alliance after the execution. The Nazis discovered her radio and I didn't want any of our codes to get compromised. I'm sure my colleagues are looking into that while I've been gone. My my condolences, by the way, about Nell. It's always been hard when we lose any of our recruits. He waited a few seconds before he said, "The Greenfield chapter is just you two then?" "It's just me, actually. Zara's only 16. Garrison set his bowl on the wobbly-legged coffee table that had been upended during the Colonel's visit. "We have members as young as 14 in some chapters. If the girl wants to join, you should let her join." The muscles around Uncle Red's jaw pulled taut. "When she's older, perhaps." "Fair enough. But you should work on boosting recruitment, as we've discussed earlier. Farragut is eager to see this chapter restored to what it used to be. You both are." He sounded very much like a politician. Polite, warm, with a hint of expectation. Uncle Red, however, wouldn't take the bait. "The Nazis in this area are breathing down our necks," he gestured to the mess in the house. "As you can see, it's not exactly the right time." "It's never the right time," Zara almost said, but bit her tongue. If she wanted to impress Garrison, Anyway, she couldn't act like a pouty child. Garrison downed his water and decided to switch topics. "I'm sure you're wondering why I'm here. The Alliance has recently come across some very classified information. If it fell into the wrong hands, well, Farragut thought it was best if I spoke with you in person." Zara perked up. "Is the Alliance planning something? A national mission?" "Let him talk, Zara," Uncle Red said gruffly. "No, it's good to hear her enthusiasm." Garrison gave Zara an approving nod before he explained further. We've gathered a few of our trusted sources in Berlin over the years, members of the wider stand, and a couple servants at the Fuchs's place. That sort of thing. They've passed along information here and there, but nothing of this caliber." Uncle Red leaned forward. Zara did the same, not wanting to miss one syllable. "The Fuhrer is very ill," Garrison went on, relishing each word like a prime cut of steak. "What does he have?" said Uncle Red. "Pneumonia?" "It's far worse than that. He has a very aggressive form of cancer." Zara blinked once, twice. "Cancer?" she whispered. Dieter's father had died of cancer too, cutting his reign short at the age of 52. Perhaps Dieter had inherited the same disease. Could this mean... Garrison nodded. "The Fuhrer is dying." The room fell silent. Zara's jaw dangled at this new realization, hanging open like the broken cupboards in the kitchen. She wondered if she had heard Garrison correctly, because Dieter's untimely death could wreak havoc in the Empire. His only son, Johann, was 9 years old, far too young to assume power. "It's lung cancer, stage 4, Garrison went on. Führer's doctors have tried everything in their repertoire, but they've only been able to slow the spreading. It's the same thing that happened to his father, Anselm." Even Uncle Red couldn't hide the surprise in his eyes. "What about his medic in the Corps of 4? Can't he do something? Anomaly healers can only fix wounds that would heal on their own. Fractures, gashes, even concussions. But a terminal illness like cancer is beyond their ability." Perhaps the Führer isn't so invincible after all, Zara thought, but she teetered on the edge of her chair. "How long does he have?" "They estimate 2 months at most. From what we've learned, he was diagnosed last November and has deteriorating ever since. That's why he hasn't made many appearances in the last few months." "But what about the recent announcement? There was a live broadcast of him in our town square." "They used a double. The Nazis created a very convincing double who has undergone a lot of surgeries to take on Dieter's likeness. Even we were fooled by it." Zara could have hardly keep up with a steady stream of information. "How long have they been using the double?" "Probably since Christmas. Führer obviously wants to keep up the facade that he's strong as ever. With Johann too young to rule, Dieter knows that his death will cause chaos among his generals. He hasn't kept a tight rein on them like his father did. Look what happened with Richelieu Faust, getting into bed with the Soviets. Once Dieter dies, his generals will probably jostle for power, and that'll weaken the entire empire." "For a time, maybe," said Uncle Red, dissecting Garrison's explanation like it was one of Zara's theories. "Although the generals will eventually finish their squabbling and choose a successor. I doubt the empire will crack because of that. Perhaps, but there's also the Soviets to think about," Garrison said. So far, he had matched every one of Uncle Red's points, and Zara wished he could teach her some of those tactics. The Reds aren't stupid. They know how sick Dieter has gotten thanks to the information they were fed by Faust. Premier Volkov has already moved troops into the borderlands. When? Uncle Red asked, his face paling. What countries? Latvia and Estonia so far. Lithuania will likely go next. They've all become sympathetic to the communist cause and have welcomed the Reds with open arms. Granted, the Soviets only have moved in troops so far. They haven't fired a shot. But with Volkov's actions look like the first step towards breaking the non-aggression pact, which could lead to war, Zero thought. If Mom and Miss Tally were here, they would have been taking notes and already plotting ways to use the information. So you're saying, what about the Japanese? Uncle Red cut in. They're Führer's strongest ally. The Soviets can't be blind enough to take on both empires and the Italians. The Italian economy is about to collapse, and Mussolini III is facing a coup. As for the Japanese, they have enough on their hands, with rebellions in China and the uprisings on the California coast. Let's face it, the Empire of Japan is stretched too thin. They got too greedy when the war ended. How could they rule Asia and the Pacific and the Western American territories? Zara nodded. Garrison was right. Although she hated giving credit to Adolf Hitler, he had been shrewd enough to avoid Japan's current problem. Once he had conquered the United States and executed Roosevelt, he knew he couldn't colonize a massive country on his own. So he split the territories with the Japanese and the Italians, saving the most fertile land and most developed portion for himself. That was one of the reasons why the Nazi Empire had thrived. It had conquered a manageable portion of land and had populated it with its ever-expanding population. Garrison leaned back on the sofa, now that all of his cards were on the table. The Führer is losing his grip on the Empire. It's as simple as that. Goosebuds shivered across Zara's arms. The Nazi leadership could crack in the next few months, and the entire Empire might soon collapse with it. If part of the borderlands took up arms against the Führer, then others might follow suit. And then the territories would have its turn. We believe this is the right time for a full-out revolution, Garrison said. That's why we've come up with Operation Burning Eagle. Burning Eagle? It sounded a bit silly, Zara thought, but fitting. The eagle was a favorite emblem of the Führer, dating back to the days of Adolf Hitler, who looked to the bird as a noble creature, a rightful symbol of his beloved Germany. Zara knew the bird had once been symbolic for the United States as well, but the only eagles she saw now graced her Reichsmark notes and Nazi flags. A revolution seems hasty, Uncle Red said. He stood from his... I lost my book. There. Stood from his chair and paced around the debris-ridden room. We don't want a repeat of Mission Metzger. Fargot and I have discussed this at length. That's why our first move is to drum up enough support across the Eastern American territories. Our chapters are strong, but we're not strong enough to take on the Nazi army. If we can garner more widespread civilian backing, however, we'd give the Germans a good fight. Uncle Red didn't stop pacing. The lines creasing his forehead made him appear only half convinced. You're talking about rallying farmers and factory workers. Most of them are focused on feeding their families, not joining a revolution. That's why we're going to take over 2 Nazi forts. We'll not only take their supplies, but we'll show the people that the Alliance is a viable force again. They'll flock into us like droves. Uncle Red rubbed his beard. We've tried to take camps and forts before, but they haven't generated nationwide support. How is this plan any different? The difference will be television. We're going to broadcast each attack on live TV, on the Channel 7 Evening News. Zara's heart tapped out an ever-fasting beat. The Alliance could broadcast their victories on television. Then they could reach countless Eastern American households. Not thousands of people, but millions. A shiver breathed across her back. This was what she had been waiting for. Even her uncle should have been elated at the news. But Uncle Red only had more questions. Break into Channel 7? How exactly? One of our rebels has gained access to the station. Let's just say she has a talent for this sort of thing. Sarah wanted to ask what this talent could be, but Garrison had already moved on to the next subject. The forts the Alliance planned to attack. He reached into his coat pocket and dug out a folded map of the former United States, spreading it over the coffee table. Our first fort will be in southern Pennsylvania, Camp Hammerstein. It's mainly a holding depot with guns and ammunition, but only a few hundred guards are stationed there at a time. So we'll attack the camp and take its weapons this upcoming Thursday evening. Then 3 days after that, we'll take the time to regroup and remove south. Our next target on Sunday night, Fort Goring. Fort Goring? Both Zara and her uncle said at the same time. Garrison knocked his knuckle on the map. That's why I came to speak to you. You know this town better than anyone else, Red. We're going to need your expertise on logistics, road conditions, water supplies, anything about Fort Goring that we didn't already know. Uncle Red could only blink. You want to attack Fort Goring in less than a week? We can do it, even with a shortened timeline. We have to strike now while the Empire is distracted by the Reds. We're talking about an all-out attack on one of the biggest forts in the territories, Uncle Red said incredulously. How are we supposed to go up against tens of thousands of Nazi soldiers? Or their troop of sentinels? Frustration flitted across Garrison's eyes, but only for a second. Don't forget that we have our own soldiers and weapons, and a few tricks up our sleeves. This won't be a suicide mission. There's no guarantee of that. Uncle Red's jaw hardened. Look at what happened at Fort Metzger. His eyes cast downward, and he added, I lost my sister there. I understand. I lost a lot of people too that day, but we're stronger now. We're better prepared. We've got a good shot at pulling this off, but our odds would be better if you help us. Zara jumped in because her uncle wouldn't. What do you need? Zara, this isn't... Uncle Red protested. We need information, said Garrison. I'll be in Greenfield until tomorrow morning. We can scout out the fort, find the weak points. That's all we're asking for. Information. That's not too much to ask, Zara said to her uncle. It wasn't like Garrison wanted Uncle Red to lead the charge at the fort. We could at least give him that, couldn't we? Uncle Red wasn't convinced, which shouldn't have surprised Zara, but it frustrated her all the same. What else do you plan on asking for? Do you want to use our farm as a gathering point? Red asked gruffly. Right now I need hard data. That's it, replied Garrison. Nearly a minute passed before Uncle Red had a reply. Zara was almost certain that he was going to quit the alliance altogether, but his response surprised her. I can tell you what I know, local topography and roads and whatnot. That's easy enough, but scouting out Fort Goring will be much harder. We don't have to get too close. I only need to get my bearings so I can relay the information to my colleagues. That politician smoothness returned to his tone. I don't think that's too much to ask of you, Redmond. The Alliance will take on all of the legwork. If I do this, said Uncle Red slowly, I don't want Zara involved. That's my decision, Zara said, anger coursing through her again. He was treating her like a little kid again. Sure, she wasn't a chapter leader like her uncle, but she knew just as much about Greenfield as he did. Zara looked to Garrison for support, since she wasn't getting any from her uncle. I can help too. I know this town like the back of my hand. I can tell you the best places to camp, to get water. I appreciate that. We don't see enough of your enthusiasm in the territories. Garrison chose his words carefully. But I'm afraid I have to defer to your uncle on this. He's the leader of the Greenfield chapter, and he makes the calls on who goes on missions. On a mission. That's our policy. Zara sank into her chair, stung. Here was her chance to finally join the Alliance, but even Garrison had shot her down. She didn't know what else she needed to do to become part of the resistance. Kill the Führer with her bare hands? Garrison clapped his hands together. I'm grateful for both of your help. I can't tell you how much it will mean for the Alliance. And Red, your assistance will be critical. We need to take over Fort Goring if we hope to launch Operation Burning Eagle. Uncle Red raised a brow, looking as though he might renege his agreement to help Garrison. I thought stealing the supplies and getting on Channel 7 was the operation. They're precursors to the operation, but not the operation itself. No, we have. No. We have something much bigger planned for that, and that is, we hit the Nazis where it'll hurt the most. We're going to march on New Berlin. Garrison smiled wickedly. We're going to take it back. Now, if you don't know, New Berlin is the Washington, D.C., so that'll just give you an idea of how big that'll be. So, yeah, thank you for watching don't think anything else is needed. Just make sure to come back, because it should be soon. Like, subscribe, and comment down below. See you guys later.